wonderful to hear my fans cheering me. And it's strange how they always sound the exact same. No matter, it's truly unique. They've got it right down. It's almost like it's recorded and they're not even real. Welcome, friends, to Talking Sports at Work. I am your host, Derek Persley. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Gonna go ahead and turn this down a little bit more. I had a so-so weekend myself. You guys can probably generally get an idea of how good my weekend is based on how my two Tennessee football teams performed. There were a lot of good things outside of football this week as well. So that sort of, made it better. The Vols dominated as expected, but they did some things that had never been done before. We knew that game was going to be a blowout. I think we were a 49.5 point favorite, and ended up winning 71-0. Excuse me. The Titans once again did pretty much the same thing that they did the week prior, although they were playing a better opponent this week, and the Jets were able to actually put together a couple of drives against what I think we now know is an elite Tennessee defense. Caleb Williams and the Bears were not able to really put together anything on offense, and we still lost. But against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, they were actually able to put together enough on offense to beat us. And but it really came down to the same things again. We'll dive into all of that, as well as the other results from the NFL, as well as some stuff around college football, as well as I've actually got a whole lot of notes today. So I'm not going to even pretend that this is going to be a short episode, because it ain't. First things first, a couple of weeks ago, I was reminded that actually it was my mom who told me that I forgot to mention anything about the best football performance, the best football player that we saw all of that week. And I have since talked more about him, but he's number 3 for the Cleveland Blue Raiders 6U team, and his name is Jack Persley, and he had another outstanding week. They actually lost their game last week. They just weren't. There were a lot of reasons for that. Jack, as an individual, played well, but the team was kind of discombobulated, and things weren't right. And plus, apparently, the official had some sort of personal issues with one of our coaches. And I'd like to think that wasn't why he was throwing all those flags, but he was throwing a lot of flags for a bunch of 5-6-year-olds. And everybody noticed this is like over the top. And then I talked to one of our coaches afterwards, and come to find out the guy has a personal problem with him. So maybe that was why. I don't know. But anyway, that's in the past. This week, this Saturday, we had a game, and it was much, much better. And as a matter of fact, the team now has a new assistant coach, and I gotta say, he seems like he's a good one. He's got a lot of potential when it comes to coaching children in football. He may not be an athlete himself, but he is very handsome, and he's very good with kids, and he knows football inside and out. And so if you haven't figured it out, it's me. And honestly, I had a friggin' blast doing it. Like, I didn't think that I would love it I thought I might have fun. But I was nervous about it. I've never coached a team before, but what happened was our head coach actually had to take the place of a guy of one of the higher divisions. I think the 10 and under team. One of those. Because there were some issues why one of the coaches from that group had to leave, and so our coach had to move up and take over for him, and so that left us with really only two guys to coach this big group of 5, 6, 7-year-olds. So I volunteered my services and got signed up, and I am now an assistant coach for the team. And I was nervous. Like I said, I didn't know how it's going to go, and it wasn't like I was out there drawing up plays or anything. I was kind of just helping where I could, but it was a lot of fun. Like, I really, really enjoyed it, and it gave me an excuse, if nothing else, to be out there on the field with Jack, and out there, on the sidelines cheering them on. And it was really, really a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed that. And Jack again had a great game. He actually recovered a fumble that was really sort of the turning point in their game. They started off a little bit sloppy, like they had the week prior, and it kind of had me concerned. But late in the first quarter, I think it was, or maybe in the second quarter, one of the biggest kid we have on our team. He's a big interior defensive lineman. He jumped through there, and Jack was right there next to him. The big guy, Sincere, made the sack and the fumble. Jack jumped on the ball, and that was just sort of the turning point. And our boys took over after that. And it got close again there at the end. That other team did not give up. They kept fighting hard. But after that turnover, it really, we sort of took over the game, and it was a lot of fun. And honestly, I think I had a big impact as well. I think I was helpful out there coaching and helping the boys. It wasn't like, again, I wasn't drawing up plays or anything. I was, more just assisting where I could. But, I'm giving them pointers. I know the game pretty well. I'm helping them. I'm giving them tips. I'm giving them encouragement. I'm helping with equipment. I'm helping with water. I'm helping with, just wherever I could. And it was a lot of fun. And I think we really have started to figure things out as far as what our offense is going to be, because that was the problem. Our defense was still pretty good even in that first game. And that's where Jack specializes. Like, I think I'm even going to see if, because we talked about this a little bit before the game last week. I think I'm even going to see if we can just start letting him pick his spots, kind of like, like an elite pass rusher can just sort of, see where he thinks the weak spot is and just line up there. I'm going to see if we can let Jack do that, because he's just so quick and so, like, crafty when it comes to getting by these guys. Like, he's just naturally got these abilities to, like, thing like when it comes to technique that you teach defensive linemen and pass rushers and stuff, like, this stuff just comes natural to him. Like, we haven't really worked on any sort of, hand placements or anything like that, but he's just got it. Like, it's really cool to see. And he's so quick and he's small, so I think they still don't really expect him to be as, like, powerful as he is, especially when it comes to hitting. But he's still either the youngest or the second youngest on the team. I think he's one of only there are two 5-year-olds, I think, on the team. Jack, and then another kid who's our starting center. His name's Nolan. I think they are the only two 5-year-olds on the team. But anyway, Jack is just, he is great on defense, and he's played different positions. He's mostly been either at linebacker or, like, either interior linebacker or outside linebacker, sort of on the edge. He's played a little bit of corner, and he's played a little bit of just, like, straight up defensive end. So I think I'm going to see if we can just sort of start letting him pick his spots and get back there. Now, I don't know if that will work with the other kids, because it's really, at this age, they need to, it's what you're really trying to teach them is the fundamentals, how to line up, where to line up, the rules of the game, and all that. So I don't know if we'll really be able to, like, let one kid do that and have everybody else just, stay in their spots. I don't know. We'll see. But I really think that would help our team, and not even just him. Like, if we could have a couple of guys like him and a couple others, maybe, just with the ability when they're, on certain plays, to just pick their spots. But anyway, we'll see. I don't know. Either way, I think I had a good impact on the kids. I think, it was a blast, and I love it. And I'm going to keep doing it, I think. So, but yeah, the one issue with it is the practices. With my work schedule, I try to make it every time. I think there's only been one that I've missed. Well, I guess two that I've missed, because one of them Jack missed, but he's been to every one except one. And then one I think I missed, and his Nana took him. But, now it's going to have to be a higher priority, because now I'm expected to be there as well. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. I didn't even mean to talk about it as long as I did, because we've got some real, football that everyone saw to talk about and dissect and dive into. So I'm going to take a quick break, see if I can check out my notes, which I think I've pretty much got everything in my head for today. But, yeah, just to be safe. Take a quick break, and I'll be right back. All right, friends, welcome back to Talking Sports at Work. So, I hate that we keep starting off the show on these Monday episodes on a negative note, but as long as the Titans keep looking like this, that's what's going to happen. Maybe I'll have it, if they keep looking like this, then I'll just have to start leading the show off with the Vols. Maybe, I don't know, but we will dive into the Vols, and it's very, very positive. Everything is looking incredibly great for the Vols. But first, we're going to talk about the most recent, and that's the Titans. Man, I just don't know. I don't remember seeing a team that just does not see a professional team that just doesn't seem to learn, that seems to continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over. Will Levis in the first 6 quarters of the season had 5 turnovers. 5. I think either 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles or vice versa. I don't know. But 5 turnovers in the first 6 quarters of the football season. And what's honestly as frustrating is the punt stuff, man. Because what the hell is this? It's not. This is the easy. This is just something that everyone takes as a given. Just block for the punt. And the crazy thing is, I don't even know who you can pin this on. You can't just pin it on the coaches because it's a completely different staff than what we had last year, and we still had this exact same problem at the end of last year. We allowed 3 blocked punts in the last few games of last season. And then you've got an entirely new staff, and they come in, and in 2 games this year, we've allowed 2 block punts. What the hell? That's got to be some kind of record. I mean, not the 2-2, but going back to last season, I'm sure that, however many we allowed in that game span is the most in Titans franchise history. I don't get it. And the crazy thing about it was, if you go back and you look at that one that we allowed this week, they weren't even going for the block. They were rushing 4 guys on a punt. 4 guys. It may have been 5, and they did try to, make it look a little confusing. But, I watched that replay. They were setting up the return. They were doing that the entire game, in fact. They weren't even really coming after the punter. They were trying to set up the return. That seemed to be their priority. So they weren't even trying to block the punt. They were rushing 4 guys and blocked a punt. And I don't know if you put it on this. I mean, the special teams coach is obviously who the fault has to lie with, because he cannot allow this. Once is okay. You can put it on particular players. Twice, especially twice in 2 games, okay, you can't put it on those players anymore, because if it is the same players, it's your fault for keeping them in there. So it's on the special teams coach, undoubtedly. But the crazy thing is, it's a completely different coach as what we had last year, and we were doing it last year as well. So I don't know. This is mind-boggling, man. I don't know how a team can allow this many blocked punts. We have been terrible on special teams. And that's so frustrating, because the rest of the team has actually been excellent. The defense, dude, this looks like undeniably a top 5 defense in the league right now. This is one of the best defenses in football across over 2 weeks. And there's no reason to think that it's not going to continue. The defense has been unbelievably good. The skill position players, the receivers. Now, maybe Hopkins hasn't had as much of an impact because he's still sort of, dealing with a lingering injury, or coming back from that injury at least. But Calvin Ridley has been everything I hoped he was going to be. You guys remember, fans of the show will know, Calvin Ridley was the number 1 guy I wanted in free agency all along, even before there was even any talk about the Titans considering him. He was the number 1 guy I wanted us to go for all along, and then we got him, and he has been everything I hoped he would be. Hopkins, like I said, you can sort of explain that as him still maybe not really feeling like totally himself from the injury. He had a couple of catches in the last game. But Chigakonkwo has looked better. Josh Wiley has looked better. Tyler Boyd has been huge, especially in the key moments when you really rely on a slot receiver, like a 3rd down. Tony Pollard has been excellent Tajay Spears has been good. I mean, Tony Pollard has been great, though. And the offensive line has actually been decent. I'm still not going to put them in the good category, but, I mean, you got to say they're better than last year, but that's an incredibly low bar. I mean, that was the worst offensive line in football last year. So just to say that they're better than last year is not very much of a compliment. But they have actually been okay. Like that left side, I really do think is going to be one, a great pairing, those two, I think, are going to be Pro Bowl guys for the next decade with Skoronski and Latham. Cushenberry has been very good. Petit Frere has held up pretty well. Radence hasn't. I don't know why. I was watching that game week 1, and they kept talking about Dylan Radence as actually saying he was the best guy on our offensive line after he got hurt. I was like, what? I still don't know what the hell they were talking about with that. But anyway, I'm not gonna get into all that. But that left side of the offensive line is still getting better, and it's already pretty good. The right side is also still getting better. Don't forget, Petit Frere is still really young. Like, he's still only like 23, 24. And we do have the youngest offensive line in the entire NFL. So all of these guys are getting better. And they've already looked decent. So the two things that are losing us football games are, number one, our quarterback, and number two, our special teams. And it's not just the punts either. It's the kick returns. We allowed the biggest kick return so far of the season last week. So far, with this new dynamic kickoff, whatever, the biggest kick return that anyone had allowed had been us. And now, Nick Folk is excellent. Ryan Stonehouse is excellent. But everyone around them just seems to suck. They cannot block worth a shit. They clearly cannot tackle and cover well enough on kickoffs. Although, really it hasn't been like that's a consistent problem. I mean, we've allowed a couple good returns, but, that's not a huge problem. It's really, but that punt blocking stuff, that's just inexcusable. Doesn't even just go, like, I don't even know a word it's inexplicable. It's mind-boggling. And the turnovers with Will Levis, man, I don't know. But you see this team that continues to make the same mistakes over and over. What does that mean? Is that bad coaching? Because I'd hate to think that. Because, that's another thing. I was talking about how everything else on the team is good. The offensive line is decent. The skill position guys look really good. The defense at every level has been outstanding. The play calling on both sides of the ball, I have absolutely loved. Everybody already loves Denard Wilson as a defensive coordinator. And he's been getting, rightfully so, a lot of credit and attention and praise, and rightfully so. Who hasn't been getting much is Brian Callahan as an offensive play caller, and the reason for that is because his quarterback keeps turning the ball over. But the play calling, I feel like, has been excellent. The run blocking, which is mostly, I think, Bill Callahan's, he's kind of sort of like the run game coordinator. It's been good. It's come down to, number one, the quarterback turning the ball over in ridiculous ways, and then terrible special teams play, specifically on kicks, on punt blocking. Yeah. I don't even know. But you saw, even after that first Will Levis turnover, where he's going to the ground, and you just got to eat that, man. You've got 3 points right there. You're already inside the 20. We may have even been inside the 15. You just got to eat that sack. And then I think it was even second down. Like, I don't even think it was third down. Just eat that sack. We'll still have another shot. And even if we don't get it, that's 3 points on the board. And you just throw it backwards. And you saw when he was walking back, everybody could read Bill Callahan's lips whenever he was walking back. What the fuck are you doing? And you can't blame him. Like, that was something that they covered on the broadcast, and I've heard talked about a little bit as well since, how Brian Callahan kind of went off on him. He needed to. I don't think anyone could blame Brian Callahan for that. I think we were all probably yelling the same things at our television and would have said them to Will Levis if we could ourselves. But I don't know. And then the second one, the very next offensive play that we had, where, that one was not nearly as bad, but, it was a shot play, which, again, I actually liked that play call. I was even saying before that play, I said, if you actually could trust your quarterback, this is a perfect time to call a sort of play action shot play. And because they're not going to think that you're going to do that right after your quarterback just made such a terrible play, this would be a great time to do that. What I didn't like was that they're going to Treylon Burks on it, for one, because he can't catch the ball whenever you throw it to him deep anyway. And you're throwing it when it's double coverage there. I mean, when you see that, you've just got to, eat that one, take off running, take the check down. No, that didn't work. But, even on that one, Will Levis gave him a shot at it. Really, I thought Burks caught the ball at first. When the play first happened, I thought he caught it. It was right there in his hands, and the defender took it away. That's another perfect example of why you don't use Burks on that play. But that one wasn't one of the mind-boggling, inexplicable, only Will Levis could do this kind of turnovers. That one was just, not great. Now, I just was sort of briefly checking my notes here because I wanted to see. The one thing that I keep thinking about when it comes to Will Levis is, I remember, and I don't remember it well, but I remember Josh Allen's first couple of years in the NFL. He was terrible. And I keep wondering, I can't remember, was Josh Allen still this bad in his second year? Because Josh Allen's rookie year, he was terrible. It looked like he was going to be a bust, and even his second year, I remember a lot of people were saying that, Josh Allen's just not going to be the guy there. I was not one of those, though. I actually already liked Josh Allen, and I was saying, if you look at the improvement he made from year one to year two, they might have something with this guy. It's way too early to say he's a bust. But his rookie year, he was terrible. He turned the ball over left and right. He wasn't completing, he was bad. His second year, from what I remember, he still wasn't very good, and there were a lot of people still questioning whether or not he was could be the guy for them. But I keep thinking with Will Levis, was Josh Allen this bad still in his second year? Because that's the only way that I can be positive about this. Is say, look, Levis is a lot like Josh Allen. I mean, if you were going to give him an NFL comp, it would probably be Josh Allen, with the size and the strength and the running ability and the rocket arm, and the turnovers. So I keep thinking, you know what? We've seen it before, where a guy with this incredible raw talent struggles early on in his career, but then then continues to get better and, becomes, in Josh Allen's case, a great quarterback. And so I keep thinking, you know what? Josh Allen was really bad early in his career. There have been other guys who've been bad. Because remember, even though this is Levis's second year in the league, he didn't start most of last season. He didn't even start until about halfway through the year, and then he got hurt and missed a couple games at that point. So this is really only like he's still in single digits when it comes to starts in the NFL. So, yeah, there's still reason to be hopeful, but I'm starting to, there's not as much reason to believe as there was prior to the season start. And what I said all along, you guys remember, is what this season's going to come down to is the two uncertainties are the quarterback and the coach. We have reason to be hopeful about both. We have reason to believe in both. We still now have reason to believe in Brian Callahan. In fact, I really like him so far And I really like the defensive coach. Those guys have just increased my faith in them. The quarterback, it's gone down. I mean, there's undeniable. I don't even see how there's any way you could have any sort of other perspective on it. Now, I'm not saying he's done. I'm not saying it's time to go to Mason Rudolph. Because, A, what good's that going to do anyway? It's not like Rudolph's going to take us to the Super Bowl. But if Levis is not the guy, then, I mean, it might as well be tank time, right? But it's still way too early to be talking about any of that. But right now, from what we have seen, you see, and what's also frustrating about it is you see the good in him as well. You see these incredible deep throws. You see these incredible runs that he makes. You see the good in him, but it's totally going to be overshadowed, as it should be, by these just ridiculously boneheaded turnovers. If he can cut out the turnovers, if he can stop it with the stupid, pointless mistakes, he can be the guy. He's got everything we want. He's got the arm. He's got the athleticism. He's got the ability to read the field. If he can stop making these stupid mistakes, we'll be good. He will be our quarterback. But so far, he is not showing the ability to stop making the stupid mistakes. So anyway, and one last thing I'll say on this is, you guys remember last week I said week 1 is a liar. Week 1, it could be, crazy things will happen. We may think that one team looks like a Super Bowl contender in week 1, and then by mid-October they're toast. You can't put too much faith. You can't put too much into what you see in week 1. Week 2, on the other hand, is more telling because we've now had a full week. We've now seen what our team is. We've seen how we've performed. We've seen what mistakes need to be cleaned up. And like Jim Harbaugh said a few days ago, he said that the most improvement a team will make all season long is from week 1 to week 2. And if that's the truth, if that's the case for everyone, if that's the case for us, we're in trouble. But it still really only comes down to one player and then the punt block team, the punt protection team. Everybody else has looked really, really good. So we'll see, man. But week 2 is still not going to be, I'm not saying the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm not saying that it's going to be the Vikings and the Saints in the NFC Championship game, or that the Ravens are going to have a losing record this season. By week 2, we still don't know everything. We still don't know much. But it is definitely more telling than week 1, I think. And judging from what we've seen in these 2 weeks, we're starting to at least get an idea of what these teams are going to look like and what the picture is going to look like in the NFL. Now, that would normally be a good segue into talking about the other NFL teams, but I'm actually going to pause on that. We'll circle back to that in a minute because I want to talk about the number 6 team in the country, the beautiful Tennessee Volunteers. So I'm going to take a quick break and we'll dive in. All right, friends, welcome back. So, all that, get that bad Titans taste out of my mouth because it's just embarrassing at this point. But man, I'll tell you who's not, are the other team in Tennessee, that team in orange up in Knoxville. Man, this team is for real. And I know it's just, I'm not saying that just based on putting 71 points on Kent State. I'm saying that based on collectively what we have seen over these first 3 games. Now, our biggest test so far will be next week. That's the game that kind of everyone has had circled all season long, or even going back to the preseason, as, this is going to be the one that's really going to tell us who our team is, at Oklahoma. Now, we are the better team. I think at this point that's been clear. And we're actually, last time I looked, we're a 7.5-point favorite on the road at Oklahoma. So that tells you we're definitely the better team. But playing on the road at Oklahoma, it is not going to be easy. And plus, you've got to factor in the Josh Heupel of it all. You got to think that this is a game that he wants more than any ever. He wants to win this one more than any game he has ever coached, I bet. And so does that mean that we're going to be better than ever? Or does that mean it might kind of throw him off a little bit? I don't know. It may not even have any effect whatsoever. I mean, that's really the hope, is that it doesn't have any effect whatsoever. But he wants this one. I mean, he's an Oklahoma alum. He won a national championship, almost won a Heisman at Oklahoma. So he wants this one. And it's really going to tell us how good our team is. Now, we said similar things, obviously, about the neutral site game about NC State, or against NC State, but we knew that one we should win it, and only if it was a really close game, or if we lose it, is that going to be the one that is telling about our season. The one that's really going to tell us now what we are is at a top 15 opponent, now a conference opponent, but whatever. But at Oklahoma, at another historic football powerhouse that has been pretty good this year. And plus, Oklahoma wants to win this one because it's their first SEC game ever. They want to come out and say, plant their flag and say, we belong here. And, we're going to come and make our place here in the SEC. We can beat these teams. We can compete. We can win this conference. They want to win this one as well. So it's going to be a big game with two very motivated teams with a lot to prove. So I'm very excited about this one. Now, what sucks is I was just looking at the schedule, and apparently it's at the same time as Georgia against Alabama. So most of the national audience is going to be watching that one. And I'm sure that's where College Game Day is going to be. Because I've been thinking for the last few days, I was wondering, are they going to announce College Game Day? I mean, you'd think it's going to be in Norman this week, for Tennessee and Oklahoma. But then I looked and I saw, Georgia's playing Alabama this week. That's why. So that's the game that, College Game Day is going to be at. And apparently it's even at the same time as our game. So that sucks. So that means that national audience is going to be watching more of that one than ours. But, that's not a huge deal. That's just a little caveat, I guess. But, yeah, man, the Vols are for real. And it's not, and the reason why I think not just me, but everyone is saying that they are for real this year isn't the offense. I mean, they are everything that we want them to be, but the offense is always good at Tennessee. The great thing is that now it's even better than usual because we've got a superstar quarterback, a really good offensive line, maybe the deepest receiving group that we've had, and a really good star running back. Which we've had the running back in the past, but it's sort of been running back by committee. This year, it really feels like it's the Dylan Sampson show at running back. Bishop's been good. Selden, I've talked about. I really like him, but he's been kind of banged up. But it's the Dylan Sampson show at running back. But anyway, the offense has been spectacular, but it's always at least really good with us. What's different this year is the defense has just gotten better and better every year that Josh Heupel and Tim Banks have been there. And I remember after Tim Banks' first and even second year, a lot of people, even people that I know, were saying Tim Banks needs to be fired. I was not one of those. I was saying all along, I don't think so. I think we just need to get, our kind of players, give him more time. I actually like the style of defense he calls because I think it fits very well with this ultra, aggressive, ultra fast offense. That means because we're going to score so many points and we're going to go so fast on offense that we can afford to be really aggressive on defense as well. And that's what he is. He brings a lot of pressure. He mixes up a lot of looks. It's similar to what Denard Wilson is doing now for the Titans. And so I've always liked Tim Banks as a defensive play caller, and I've liked his scheme. And now that he's got the players to fit it, you see what this is. This is an elite defense. This is not just a defense that's good enough to allow our offense to, that's not going to lose games for us and our offense can win them. This is a defense that can actually win us games too when we needed to. This is an elite defense in the country. I mean, and it's still too early to know for sure, but from what we have seen so far, I think it's safe to say this is one of the best defenses in the SEC, which obviously means it's one of the best defenses in the country. And I mean, that front is unbelievable. The secondary has held up a lot better than I think a lot of us feared it might, with all the new faces, all the young players, which, they don't have to be great because the front is so good. But this is going to be their big test as well. That's the one thing that I think might kind of worry us against Oklahoma is our young secondary. Will our front be able to put enough pressure to keep our young secondary out of trouble against an Oklahoma team that is, even though they've got a defensive minded head coach, it's still Oklahoma. They're still going to be a high powered Big 12 offense. They've still got a really good quarterback. They've still got great skill position players like they always do. So it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be fun. Now, a couple of things that I just had on my notes that I wanted to talk about with the Vols really quickly is I saw one stat that I loved. Over the first 3 games of the season, we are plus 178 in point differential, plus 178 point differential through the first 3 games in the season. That is a record, not just for Tennessee, but for the SEC. For the first 3 games of the season, plus 178 point differential. The best in SEC history. I just absolutely love that. And also, speaking of records, 37 points in the first quarter against Kent State is a record, Tennessee record for most points in a quarter. And surprisingly, 71 points, they said, was a record for us. We scored 71 in the game. I think they said that was a record. That was the most points Tennessee had ever scored. Now, that was a little surprising because, I know that historically we've been a run the ball and defense team, but Josh Heupel's been here for a few years now, and you would think that even going back to like the 30s or something, that we would have scored more than that at some point. I don't know. I was surprised by that. But we had it 65-0 at halftime. I mean, that one was just a masterclass. And of course, the opponent was a cupcake, but still, that was still just beautiful to watch. And now, one sort of, just one moment. I got to take a sip of my coffee real quick. One thing that Another development in college football is Texas moved up to number 1 after Kentucky almost beat Georgia, and Texas has continued to be dominant. Texas moved up to number 1. And I don't know what the status is of Quinn Ewers, but Arch Manning came in and was outstanding. And I was texting with my cousin about this at some point yesterday, I think it was, and he was saying how seeing a Manning at Texas just hurt him. And my response was Nico. That was it. That was all I was going to say, Nico. And he said, I know, it's just weird. And I said, Nico. And we're texting this. And, dude, fuck him. That's what I said. I don't care. Let Arch do whatever he wants to do. I'm good with the guy we've got. Yeah. And that's going to continue to be. I mean, those guys, I think, will be sort of, compared to each other, and have, their careers will be sort of parallel. But because they were the top 2 quarterbacks in that recruiting class, well, ESPN had Nico rated lower, but 24/7 Sports, and I think most other of the major outlets, had Nico as the number 2 quarterback in that class and the number 2 player in that class behind Arch Manning. So those two are going to be compared to each other throughout their careers. And I don't know what the status is, how serious that Quinn Ewers injury is, but that's going to be a big factor for Texas moving forward. But yeah, I mean, Arch can do whatever he wants. I'm fine with it, honestly, because our dude is unbelievable. I'm not saying that Nico's definitively better because we don't have enough evidence yet. But what we can say is that Nico is definitively a superstar. He is for real. He is everything we hoped he was going to be. So that's that. Also, speaking of rankings, Tennessee jumped up one more spot, which I thought we should have been. This made sense. We should be ahead of Missouri. We're better than Missouri. I actually think we should probably be ahead of Ole Miss as well, but I understand why we're not. Now, the thing about Ole Miss, they've been dominating everybody they played. Look at their schedule. And I thought that, okay, well, week 4, they might actually be tested. No, they're playing another cupcake, week 4. The first 4 games of their season are nobody's. The toughest game on their schedule in the first 4 weeks is Wake Forest. So I don't think we can. I don't think we really know anything about Ole Miss yet for sure. I know everybody wants to talk about Jackson Dart. It looks like a Heisman candidate. Maybe he does, but let's wait and see when they actually play a real opponent. And I know that Tennessee's only played one real opponent so far as well, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to compare us against Ole Miss just because they haven't played anybody yet. But I do think that we needed to be ahead of Missouri, and I'm glad that they went ahead and bumped us up one spot. So now Tennessee is number 6, and Texas is up to number 1. And I've got a buddy who's a Texas fan, so good for them. We don't actually play them this year, which feels like a huge missed opportunity by the SEC for the whole real UT battle. But I guess that will come in the future. And another thing, and I talked about this in an earlier episode, I can't believe they gave Texas such an easy schedule in the SEC. I mean, they're obviously, I still say there's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC, but if you look at Texas's, man, it's the closest one you'll ever see to an easy SEC schedule. I think the only team they even play that's currently ranked is Georgia. So I don't know what that's all about, but Texas is the real deal. I will give them that. They are. I thought they were a little bit overrated going into this season, but they're the real deal. And they will even. I don't know where that game is played, whether it's at Georgia or at Texas, but that could end up determining the game. I think they really are that good. And I know that's not like a hot take. I mean, they're now the number 1 team in the country. But I'm just saying that I believe before the season started that they were a little bit overrated. I no longer believe that. Texas is for real. And it's going to be interesting, though, to see what happens with Quinn Ewers, if he's able to come back or if it's going to be the Arch Manning show from now on. But either way, I don't care because my Vols look outstanding. And we've got our first big test coming up this Saturday. And I think we're going to win. I kind of wish I would have gone ahead and put some money on that a couple of weeks ago because it was actually already available on some outlets. And I think we were actually a slight underdog a couple of weeks ago for that game at Oklahoma. But now last time I looked, a 7.5-point favorite. Anyway, I'm going to take one more break and try to dive into some of this other stuff I got because I'm running out of time. Alrighty, friends, welcome back. So, as I mentioned, I'm kind of running out of time here, so I think I'll go ahead and just do a lightning round of topics that I had left. One thing I was going to talk about is, I probably mentioned this last week, I was having a tremendous betting streak where I actually, between Saturday and Thursday of last week, I won as much as or about as much as I did working the previous week. So that was great. Excuse me, that streak has now come to an end. At least Sunday, I did not win most of my bets. Saturday, I still did pretty well. I won a parlay that had I did some alternate spreads on them. I had Kentucky staying within like 24 of Georgia, which obviously that happened. I had South Carolina. I may have just stuck with the normal spread on it because I think it was like 5.5. I had that one. And then the Missouri one, whoever they were playing, it felt like their spread was a little too high. And so I won that one. I had that 3-game parlay that I won. So Saturday was still good for betting. Then Sunday, everything just kind of went bleh. I lost. Let's see. One reason why I've been winning so much is because I've been lucky in hitting multiple first touchdown scorer bets over the first week of the season, including that Thursday night game. And that I didn't hit any more of those this week, but I also lost on. I had a parlay that was the 49ers who lost to the Vikings, and who else? I don't know. I had another three-game parlay, and I lost 2 of them. But yeah, and then I again just did what I always do. You'd think I'd learn, but I put some money on the Titans money line. So yeah, my hot betting streak has come to a bit of an end, but I still think I'll be okay. I mean, I'm still definitely positive for the season so far, but yeah, I no longer think I am potentially psychic or should go work in Vegas. But yeah, I don't know if that was ever really the case. Another thing on that same note, also really quickly, Thursday for some reason, I could not understand why they had the Bills as an underdog in that game. But I put the most money I've ever put on one single bet. I put on that on Thursday. Normally, I'm not going to say the amount, but it was a lot. And yeah, obviously that one paid off really well. And that's one thing that's going to change too, I think, as we start to see who's who, and now we're starting to get an idea of these teams. There are some games where I can usually pick out and say, okay, that underdog looks like, they should not be an underdog. I think I can get some on that. That's not going to be the case quite as much now, as now everybody's starting to understand who these teams are. But I still think I can find value, and I'll still be able to make more money than I lose over the course of the season. But that incredibly hot streak that I was on there for a little while has come to a little bit of an end. Also, my fantasy team sucks so far this year. Actually, they don't, and that's frustrating. It's a good team, but I'm 0-2 already this season, and that's not great, obviously. So, yeah, I made some good moves. I put together a good team, but it's just both games I've ended up coming up very just like I think week 1 I lost by like 1 point, and then week 2 I lost by single digits, and it's just kind of happened that I've been unlucky these first 2 weeks, but hopefully I can turn that around as well. Also, some quick thoughts on the results, the NFL results. I mentioned I would dive into that later and circle back to that, but I don't have a lot of time, so I'll just kind of go through quickly. The teams that are surprising, I think, so far are the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Vikings as far as, good surprises. And I wonder which, if any of those, are for real. It feels like of those teams, the most likely one that is actually for real would be the Buccaneers, because they made the playoffs last year. They even won a playoff game last year against, that collapsing Eagles team, but still. And so you think that if any of those teams are for real, it's probably the Buccaneers. But the Saints are very, very interesting. I mean, they haven't just won their first 2 games. They have demolished their opponents in the first 2 games. Now, week 1, that was not a surprise to anybody. But doing it to the Cowboys yesterday, that one was a surprise. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if the Saints can. I don't think they're going to, host the NFC Championship or anything necessarily, but they have the talent. And if they have sort of turned that culture around, and the coach feels, like they've got the right coach and the staff's in place and everything's good there, then the Saints might be, for real. I mean, they, through these first 2 games, and what's crazy is it looks like that division that everybody thought the Falcons were just going to run away with because it looked like one of the worst divisions in football, now looks like one of the better divisions in football. I mean, the Saints are, definitely look outstanding through these first 2 weeks. The Buccaneers, I think, are not only just a surprise 2-0, I think they might be able to continue and compete for that division and maybe even, make the playoffs. And the Falcons are so far 0-1 and playing a tough Eagles team tonight. They could be 0-2 after this week. So, and then the poor Panthers. God, the poor Panthers, man. I don't know. I haven't watched any of it, so I still don't know what to make of Bryce Young. If there's any positive to find there, or anything that you can look at and say, okay, maybe he's still going to be the guy, or maybe there's some positives here. Maybe Clinton Canales is going to be able to, turn things around. Maybe we've got the coach. Maybe we've got the quarterback. I don't know. I mean, I hope that that's the case for them, but it just, yeah, I don't know. They are, I think, pretty clearly the worst team in football. And then another surprise is at least one team that's 0-2, and that's the Ravens. Oh, and really quickly, I just wanted to circle back to one of the other surprise 2-0s, and that's the Vikings. Now, the interesting thing about them is, you guys know, I love Kevin O'Connell as a head coach. And if he has actually gotten Sam Darnold to be the Sam Darnold that we thought he was going to be in the draft, then this team might be for real as well. I'm not saying that's the case, because the Jets just destroy quarterbacks. It's what they do. And I don't know that anyone can undo the damage that they did to him. That's just historically the Jets organizations destroy quarterbacks. It's not coaching, it's organizational. It's what they do. I mean, going back to Mark Sanchez, they destroyed him after They went to the AFC Championship game his first 2 years. They destroyed him. They destroyed Sam Darnold. I never was a believer in Zach Wilson, but he might have been able to be competent if he'd gone somewhere else. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that the Vikings right now just beat the team that everybody thought was the best in the NFC, and they beat them pretty handily. And again, it's week 2, so these teams that now look like they're really good, at least, some of them will not be come a few weeks from now. But just judging from what we have seen so far, like I said, I think the Bucks are for real. I think the Saints could be. And if Sam Darnold can really be the Sam Darnold that he was supposed to be in that draft, then maybe the Vikings are for real as well. We'll see. I mean, they've got some talent on that team as well. And then the surprise 0-2 team is the Ravens. I think they will turn things around as well. Going 0-1, starting your season off against the Chiefs, that's not, that's excusable. But then they lost to, who was it that they lost to this past week? Somebody they shouldn't have lost to. Oh, the Raiders. So they've got some issues to fix, but I think that they will get things turned around. Were there any other games that stuck out to me that I can't remember? I was going to talk about the Tua thing briefly, but I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, that's a whole other topic that I'm going to have to spend more time on than what I've got left here. Oh, the Packers and Malik Willis beat the Colts, who are now 0-2 as well, which, the Packers are really good, but that was the other one on that parlay. Yeah, I had the Colts beating that because I saw Malik Willis, and I was like, man, the Colts should be pretty good, and they should be able to win that one. Well, they didn't, so that was a surprise. The Browns, I didn't watch that game, but it looked like Deshaun Watson was playing pretty well from the highlights and stats that I saw. So that's got to be super encouraging. I think the Jags are now 0-2 too, right? Did they win last week? I can't remember. But the Cardinals blew out the Rams, which was surprising. I mean, I know that one was expected to be close, but I would have thought the Rams would have been a slight favorite in it, but it was a toss-up. And the Cardinals just demolished them. It ended up being 41-10. The Steelers send the Broncos to 0-2. And that was pretty much. And then the Texans. I mean, as much as it pains me, I've got to say they are the real deal. They are, I think, a top 5 team in the NFL. Probably a top 3 team in the AFC. They are the real deal. And it pains me not just because they're a division opponent, but also because CJ Stroud, man, we were supposed to get him. That was the thing everybody was saying in the couple of days leading up to the draft, was that the Texans aren't really sold on him, and that they're probably going to just take Will Anderson. And then every mock draft you saw the day of and day before the draft had the Tennessee Titans trading up to number 3 with the Cardinals to take CJ Stroud. And so just knowing that it felt like so close to being a Titan. Yeah. But, obviously it never was a real possibility because the Texans just went ahead and took him at number 2 and then traded up again to take Will Anderson at number 3. And at the time, and I still believe what probably happened there was, I think that the head coach, D'Amico Ryans, being a defensive guy, just loved Will Anderson, but maybe the front office said we need to take our quarterback, so they just compromised and got them both. But anyway, so I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. I had a couple other topics on, just really quickly. One other thing that I will mention is everybody's saying Tom Brady is not doing very well so far as an announcer, and people are kind of bashing him, and I hear some media people defending him. And look, here's the thing. I watched most of that first game he did last week. I didn't watch much of the second one because it was on at the same time as the Titans, the one he did this week. But yeah, he didn't sound very good, but he's still new to this. And the thing I really want to say about this is, I heard some media members defending him and saying everybody's being way too harsh and being over the top hard on him. Look, here's the thing you got to understand. I don't think it's unfair or anything at all to want Tom Brady to fail at something. I honestly feel that way myself, and I think many just normal people are feeling that. Now, I don't want to see him fail at anything, huge, or I wouldn't want him to just fail at this overall. I wouldn't want anything really bad to happen to him, but just this guy who has had the perfect life, who is the perfect human man, who has a perfect face, who has 6 Super Bowls, who is the greatest quarterback of all time, who is just a golden god of a human. I think it's okay for us to be happy to see him fail at something, right? I don't think that's wrong. Now, again, I wouldn't want him to fail completely at this or to have anything really bad happen to him, but I think it's okay for us to take a little bit of happiness in him just stumbling out of the gates at this. That's okay. I'm happy to see Tom Brady suck at something just a little bit. Now, I think he will get better at it, and I hope he does, honestly. But I think it's okay to take a little bit of pleasure in seeing this man who has had just the absolute most perfect life. His life has been nothing but an uninterrupted boulevard of green lights. And that's an Alec Baldwin thing, by the way. But to see him just fail a little bit at something, I think it's okay for us to take a little bit of joy in that. So, anyway, those are my thoughts for today. I am going to call it a day. I don't know when I'll be back. I know I haven't been doing the YouTube channel much lately. I've just been honestly pretty overwhelmed lately. I've been working my off day every week, and that takes away a lot of time that I would have to do schoolwork and YouTube and anything else, housework, whatever. So I don't know. I'm going to try to get back to doing some YouTube stuff soon, but if nothing else, I'll continue to do these episodes. I'll probably do another one this week, but we'll see. Anyway, I hope everyone has a great Monday, has a great week. I'm going to call it a day. I'll talk to you again soon, and I love you. Bye.